Hi, I'm Marie. Welcome to Marie's Kitchen. I'm so glad you're back. Today we're making make-ahead chocolate bourbon pecan pie. And we're doing the make-ahead version because I know when the holidays get here, it gets so stressful. So there's nothing better than having a few things that you can do ahead. So I'm going to give you some tips for things that you can do a few days ahead, a week ahead, even a month ahead. So by the time the holidays actually get here, you won't be as stressed and you'll be able to really enjoy some time with your family and friends. And the great thing about this pie is that it is so easy to make. It's really just one bowl that you stir with a spoon. Anyone can do it. And the flavor is incredible. You've got that rich bourbon pecan base plus the chocolate. It's indulgent, it's decadent, it is delicious. I can't wait for you to try it. Let's get started. First step, we are making a homemade crust, and if you would rather use a store-bought crust, that is totally fine. I mean, save time where you can. But if you're interested in learning how to make a homemade crust, I do highly recommend it. The flavor is incredible and it is so easy, especially if you have a food processor. That's how I'm going to show you to make it today. If you don't have a food processor, hop over to my other video, Easy Pie Crust Tutorial. On there, I show you how to make it in a KitchenAid stand mixer or just in a bowl with your own two hands, no equipment at all. So whatever you have, whether you have equipment or not, you can make a homemade pie crust, and it is so easy, I promise you. I'm going to convince you of that someday. And the great thing about pie crust is that is one of the things that you can make ahead. You can make this up to 2 months ahead, and it's out of the way. You can make 3 or 4 of them. You can roll them out, put them in the pie plate, and store those in the freezer. So when it's time to make a pie, you just pull out a pie plate with a crust in it. That's what I do. So I'm going to show you how to do all that. Not to worry. Let's get cooking. So the first thing is we've got our food processor, and we're going to add 1 1/4 cups all-purpose flour right into the bowl. Next, we have 1 tablespoon sugar and about 1/4 teaspoon kosher salt. Now we'll pop the lid on and give this a pulse just to stir everything up. Now I'm going to grab the butter. We have 1 stick or 8 tablespoons, 1/2 cup of unsalted butter, and I keep that in the refrigerator right until we're ready to use it. So I'm going to grab it now. Okay, here's our butter. We're just going to open that up and cut that into about 8 pieces. Does not need to be exact, just you want it in some pieces though. And then we'll just toss those into our bowl of our food processor here. Set that aside. And give this about 10 to 15 pulses. There's 10, that's good. Okay, now we're going to add 5 tablespoons cold water. Really simple. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Great. Now we'll give that another pulse just until it comes together. Okay, that was about 7 pulses. And here we have our pie crust. And I do like to show that even though when you reach in, be careful of the blade, it looks pretty dry when you reach in, but if you grab a hunk and hold on to it, it does come together like a pie crust, and that is how you know your pie crust is done. So that's done. Now we'll just pop this off. Wasn't that easy? Come on. You know it was. Okay, now we need some Glad press and seal or saran wrap. We're going to just pull out a big sheet of that. I put it sticky side up. Then we take the blade out of our food processor, and we're going to just flip this right on to the press and seal and pull the corners together in order to form this into a nice disc shape. Here we go. We twist it closed right here, and there is a homemade pie crust. That was pretty easy, right? I mean, it's faster for me to do this than go to the grocery store. So I really hope you try this. So as far as make-ahead tips, this is definitely something you can make ahead. You can make a pie crust up to 2 months in advance and store it in your freezer. To thaw it, you'll just put it in the refrigerator overnight. So I'm gonna put this in the refrigerator now and let it chill. I did have a second crust that I made about 20 minutes ago. It's been in the fridge, so we're gonna roll that one out so we can keep moving here. So here's our crust. We're gonna just open it up, and now we'll put a little flour on our counter here, a little flour on top. Now this has only been in the fridge for about 20 minutes, so it is not ice cold. If you do get a crust and take it out of the refrigerator and it feels just ice cold, and when you roll it, it just doesn't go anywhere, let it sit for about 5 minutes on the counter at room temp and just let it warm up a tiny bit. This one is not too cold though. Okay, so I like to just press it out a little bit with my hands. Just do this a little bit. Now we want to make sure we have flour underneath, which we do, a little on top, and then I usually do a little on my rolling pin. And then we are just going to, I like to do a roll, and then we turn it a half turn. And the reason you turn it a half turn is, there's 2 reasons actually. The first is you don't want it to stick. If your pie crust sticks to your countertop, it is impossible to get off in one piece and you'll have to ball it up and start over. So that's number 1 reason we don't want it to stick. The second reason is that it's much easier to keep it in a round shape as you're rolling it if you turn it after each roll. So again, we roll it and give it a turn, roll it, give it a turn, roll it, give it a turn. I'll shut up now. Is looking great. This looks nice and big and it's not stuck. Yay. Okay, so what we do next is take our pie plate. This is a 9-inch Pyrex pie plate. It's very cheap and affordable, so I always like to have a few of these on hand. Okay, so we flip it over, set it on the dough, and if you have about 2 inches around the outside of it, you know you're done. To move the pie crust, I just fold it right over, set the pie plate here, put the crease in the middle, and unfold it. Ta-da! Now, if it's cracked, if your pie crust is a little dry and it cracked, not to worry, just kind of seal it back together with your fingers and maybe a little water. You won't be able to see it after it bakes, so no reason to worry about that. Okay, now we're just going to tuck the edges under itself. Like, this is a little much, so I'm going to pinch off a little bit, and we're just going to tuck this under and rest it on the lip of the pie plate there. So tuck it under, rest it on the lip, tuck it under, and then in these few places where there's just kind of a lot of thick crust, we just pinch it right off. So simple. Okay, roll this under, under. And if you happen to come upon a place where you didn't have quite enough dough, you can take some of your scraps and use that to kind of bulk it up a bit. So as intimidating as pie crust can be, it's actually very, very sort of forgiving. You can just add a piece here and there if you need it. Take off a little of this there, and under, and there we go. Might need a little more here. We'll just add a little more in there and press it down. Okay, now we'll just kind of even out our crust here. Very nice. And then I did have someone ask recently on my Instagram. You can join me over there. I'd love to connect. It's at Marie Saba. That's my Instagram. And I had some questions there about my pie crust because the fluted edge was so kind of wide. She said it didn't look like a normal crust where people just kind of pinch with their fingers, pinch it in like that, I think. These little pinches. And I said, I think that's because I use my knuckle. Instead of using my finger to make that fluted edge, I use 2 fingers and my knuckle instead of the finger there. So this makes it a little wider, this knuckle technique, and I actually think it looks really good. So I like to do that. You just do 2 fingers and a knuckle like that. I'm gonna try to face this way so we can get it on camera. and I'm a little turned around now, but basically you can see it's just pressing the dough between 2 fingers and my knuckle there. And you just go all the way around, and it makes it kind of these nice, large scalloped edge pieces. Okay, there we go. And dip your knuckle in a little flour if it gets sticky. All right, so there is our crust. Now, this is another make ahead tip. You can make this up to a month in advance. So it's November 1st today when I'm filming this. We're gonna save this for Thanksgiving. I'm gonna wrap it up with saran wrap, double wrap it, put the date on it, and pop it in the freezer and let that freeze. And then when I'm ready to use it, just pull it out, fill it up, and bake it. Now it's time to make the filling. The filling you can make a day or 2 ahead. Just put everything in except the pecans and the chocolate chips. Store that in a Tupperware or a glass jar in your refrigerator, and then bring it out to room temperature for about 5 to 10 minutes before you add it with the pecans and chocolate chips. So this is another great one to make a day or 2 ahead. So to start, we're gonna crack 3 eggs. Next is packed light brown sugar. Then we'll add 2 tablespoons flour, and this is to help thicken the pecan pie. Sometimes if you don't use a thickener like flour or cornstarch, it can just kind of ooze everywhere. So 2 tablespoons all-purpose flour goes into the filling. Now I'll give this a little stir just to kind of mix things up. Next is light corn syrup. Just pour that right in. Now we'll add 1 tablespoon vanilla extract. I love vanilla in everything. Next is 2 tablespoons bourbon. 1, 2. And then 2 tablespoons melted butter that's been melted and cooled. And this is unsalted butter. I'm gonna pour that right in. And give that a stir. And this custard part is done. This is it, y'all. It is all we have to add now is our pecans and chocolate chips, and the filling is ready to go. We're gonna use 2 cups pecan halves. And the final ingredient is 1/2 cup semi-sweet or dark chocolate chips. We'll just pour those right in with the pecans. Could not be easier. Give that a stir. And there we have our bourbon pecan pie with chocolate. All right, now we will just pour this delicious filling right into the crust. Now I have the oven preheating to 425 degrees. I always bake it at 425 for the first 15 minutes, and that will help the crust set up nice and tall and also get nice and crisp and really hold its shape. So we're gonna start at 425, and I am gonna put it on a cookie sheet. Bourbon pecan pies rarely or never overflow, but just in case, if it happens to, something bubbles over, you won't have a big mess to clean up in your oven. So I always do bake it on a cookie sheet. The other thing I want to show you is what's called a pie shield, and this is really one of my favorite gadgets of all time. If you make pies around the holidays or a few times a year, I do recommend it. It is basically just a piece of thin metal that fits right on your pie crust, and that will protect your pie crust from burning. All right, now we're going to put this in the oven at 425 degrees for 15 minutes. Then we'll reduce the temperature to 350 and bake for 45 to 50 minutes more. And I'm going to put my pie crust shield on after the first 15 minutes. All right, well, the pie is baking. I want to show you how to make pie crust decorations. These are so easy to make, and they make your pie look so impressive. First, what you'll need is another crust, and you can use a store-bought crust for this, either way, homemade or store-bought. Go ahead and roll that out, and then what you'll need are what are called pie crust cutters. Sometimes they're also called fondant cutters or cookie cutters with a stamper. This is one here by Talisman Designs. You can also find other brands at Williams-Sonoma or on Amazon or Michael's Craft Store. So check out some of those and look for some seasonal pie crust cutters or cookie cutter stampers. And the stamper is just the thing that's this plunger here, and so when you cut out the leaf shape, which is what I'm using, and you stamp it, you will get, if it doesn't stick, you'll see the little vein on the leaf, which just looks really nice. So we can go ahead and cut out some of those with whatever shapes you want to. And I'm going to set these on a baking sheet here covered with parchment paper. And we'll bake these separately at about 350. And this is really fun if you want to have kids help. This is a great thing for them to do. Really easy. Uh-oh.
It's like me.
Yeah. You want to cut some out?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So just press it in, stamp it. Now these cutouts you can freeze as well, like you freeze the pie crust. Just pop them in the freezer, and then when you're ready to bake them, pull them out. So that's another great thing to make ahead. Or if you want to save this for, Thanksgiving and have the kids help, that's great too. Okay, we have our cutouts done. Now we'll put these in the oven at 350 and bake them for about 20 to 25 minutes, just until golden. The pie's still baking, but the decorations are done, and just for fun, since this is a chocolate pecan pie, I wanted to try a new technique. Never done this before on a pie, so I'll show you what I'm doing. What I did is I melted some chocolate in a double boiler, and then once that's melted, we're gonna just grab this Ziploc bag and use a corner of it. I'm just gonna snip off a little tiny little corner there, and that will make you a piping bag, so you can drizzle chocolate on things in a very even way. So it's so simple to make. You just open up the bag now, and we're just going to scoop some chocolate right into that bag. Don't need a lot in there. Couple scoops. And as we squeeze it over some of the leaves, and you just kind of drizzle it like that. I thought, well, it's a chocolate pie, or chocolate pecan pie, so why don't we kind of signal that on the decorations so people know what they're having. So I'm just going around and doing several of the leaves as this chocolate decoration. And then, to make it even a little fancier, what I did was I had some gold little sprinkles here. Put some in my hand, and then just sprinkle those right on top of the wet chocolate. And that gives it a little gold sparkle. Makes it look very, very expensive. Now we'll just let those completely dry, and then we can use those to decorate the pie. Okay, the pie is done, and man, does it look incredible. You've got this beautiful flaky golden crust. You can see these little flakes are already coming off. It's going to be so good, and it's got a nice golden color. The filling is nice and toasted, big and full of pecans and chocolate. So beautiful. I really hope you get to try this one. Now I am going to let this cool a little bit more before I add my decorations, because the filling it puffs up when it bakes, and then it's going to sink down a little bit. So let it cool completely and then add your decorations. Thanks so much for joining us on Marie's Kitchen. Today we made a homemade crust with a chocolate bourbon pecan pie with tons of tips for making ahead. You can make the whole pie ahead 2 days ahead and then have it ready for Thanksgiving. So hopefully this will help your holidays be a little less stressful. If you like this video, be sure to give us a thumbs up. That means so much to us and also to YouTube. Also, leave us a comment. Let us know if you get to try this recipe, or if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. I've got lots more videos coming up with easy recipes just like this, and I don't want you to miss any of them. For this recipe and more, check out my website, marieseba.com. There you can go and print out this recipe as well as all my recipes, put them in a notebook, and make your very own Marie's Kitchen cookbook for free. My goal is to give you some really easy recipes that turn out great every time so you can build some confidence in the kitchen and feel really inspired to share good food with people that you love. From my kitchen to yours, thank you.